Hey everybody, hope you're all doing well. My name is Steven and this is the Storytime channel. Today we have some malicious compliance stories and our first story of the day is by NDelty7. My apologies, Sargent. No password, no entry. I am a soldier in the army. Years ago, we were doing a huge training mission that involved a full-scale simulated war. Multiple large military units were involved, including infantry, medics, and my unit, the Transportation Boys. The mission was 2 weeks in the swamps of Louisiana with no laundry, no showers, and not even proper shelter from the rain. My unit's job was simply driving around bullets, blanks of course, food, water, and people. I was part of a small squad that pulled security for the rest of our squad. Instead of standard big army trucks, we had Humvees with 50 caliber machine guns on top. When it came to free time at the forward operating base, we were overhyped security guard. When it came to free time at the forward operating base, we were overhyped security guards. My job in particular was to watch the main entrance returning convoys came through. Just little old private me and another soldier on gun. To get on the post, we had little challenge and response passwords that were made up every morning and put out by word of mouth. For example, Thunder and Flash. I call out Thunder, typically hidden in a sentence so a sneaky boy can't tell, and the entering individual replies Flash in a sentence. Being a private, lowest rank, fresh out of basic, all we know is malicious compliance. Sargent said, "I don't care if the gosh darn flipping Christ himself shows up. If he doesn't know the password, he doesn't get in." Well, about 4 hours of letting folks in, I have a full convoy of about 20 huge trucks and a ton of tired, wet, and hungry soldiers showing up to return from a mission. Their leader, some super high-up sergeant first class, basically a sergeant who leads the leaders of the sergeants, super high up to the lowly private, from another unit walks up to me and my Humvee. "We have been having some monster rain today, haven't we, Sergeant?"
"I don't have time for that BS. Let us in, boy."
"My apologies, Sergeant. No password, no entry." Sergeant First Class, visibly red and piping hot at being told to kick rocks by a private.
"Are you joking with me right now, boy? I will have your butt."
He then stormed off, talked with his underlings for a few minutes, then proceeded to walk about a quarter mile to where our porta potties were. They were outside the base, to ask a random passerby the password. He then returned, said dishwasher, got in his truck, and rolled on in. Let me ask you guys, if you were on guard duty and you knew that the person rolling up was a very high person in the food chain and you knew that they were legitimate, would you be able to stand there and still insist that they have to give you the code before they get in? Or would you maybe crumple towards the pressure of them being so influential or so high up and knowing maybe it somehow causes you grief later on because of just what the Sergeant First Class can pull? Let me know in the comments down below. Our next story is by G8351427. The HR lady doesn't like me much. So this happened at the company that I currently work for, but it was many years ago. I did not plan the outcome, just a coincidence caused by insisting on malicious compliance. I work in IT and when I started, my job was rather entry level, but it was paid as a salary position. After some years, the company decided to make it an hourly position, which I did not like for a variety of reasons. The company's main hourly worker pool was for manufacturing and assembly line, so the company structured its hourly policies around that position. Rigid start and end times, scheduled breaks, and sick time billed to your earned PTO. A lot of these policies were not really compatible with my availability and the type of work that I was doing. Not to mention some of the benefits changed considerably. Hourly employees were supposed to use a time clock, but those were only in buildings that had manufacturing. My manager at the time totally understood why I was disgruntled, and she came up with a few workarounds. One of which was to enter a generic 40-hour time card for me in the system every week, which was cool because it meant I did not have to use the punch clock. If there was any overtime, she would go in and fix it later. There was nothing that I could do about the change to hourly, but being me, I was pretty vocal about it, and my attitude eventually caught the attention of the HR lady. She also got wind of the whole time card deal, so that came to an end. I gave in and started using the punch clock. No more edits. At some point, my manager needed me to start the day in a different building which had no punch clock. I don't think she was aware that there was no punch clock, so she had to make an edit to my time card for that day. Well, the HR lady saw the edit and assumed that I was still being obstinate. Out of the blue, my manager scheduled a formal type meeting with me in one of the local conference rooms. She presents a document for me to read and sign, which is a formal reprimand for not following the policy regarding the time clocks. I was instantly furious because I was following the policy, but she sent me to a site without a punch clock. She had no choice as the HR lady was the one who wrote the reprimand and told my manager to have me sign it. I read through the write-up and realized it was very poorly written, like a grade schooler had prepared it. Lots of copy and paste text, points that did not apply to the issue at hand, and no clearly defined problem with a desired resolution and probationary period. So I refused to sign. I pointed out the many mistakes, the points that did not apply, and lack of a resolution plan or time period. My manager agreed with me that the reprimand was BS, but the HR lady wanted to go down this path. I thought, well, then we're gonna do it right, and I was gonna make her work for it. I demanded a rewritten form with a clearly stated problem, a desired resolution, and a time frame for when the matter would be considered resolved. My manager said, "The HR lady is not gonna like that. She is gonna want to talk to you directly." I said, "Good. I will gladly tell her to her face." We scheduled a meeting. I explained to the HR lady that the reprimand process was an opportunity to not only point out mistakes, but also to correct them. The lack of an improvement plan in this write-up meant it could not meet those requirements. Begrudgingly, the HR lady accepted my complaints and agreed to redo the write-up. To my surprise, I never heard from her again about this issue. I had kind of forgot about the whole thing until they did some restructuring in IT, which made me realize I didn't want that hanging over my head unresolved. I decided to formally request a copy of my file from HR, and to my surprise, the reprimand was not in it. I emailed the HR lady asking about this, and she explained that she rescinded it, so it's gone. I was a little confused that she hadn't mentioned this in the months that had passed, but was glad it was over. Sometime later, I was having lunch with my director, and he brought up the reprimand. He was asking, "Whatever happened with that?" And I told him HR rescinded it. Apparently, HR cannot close a reprimand without the employee's leadership signing off on it, which was about 4 different people. Not a single one would agree to it. It turns out that my malicious compliance with the reprimand process forced her to write a detailed, intelligible reprimand, including an improvement plan. All the extra details she had to add made it clear to everyone that it was BS and she couldn't add it to my file. I mean, the bottom line here is they were trying to reprimand you for doing something that you literally physically could not do. There was no punch clock for you to use. You're basically getting reprimanded at this point for not being able to conjure up a whole new punch clock so you can keep up to date. Our next story is by the Broken Puppet 19, How My Significant Other Got My Birthday Off. The title doesn't sound malicious compliance, but don't judge based off of the name. I rarely celebrate my birthday anymore, but if it wasn't for my significant other, 21-year-old male, I wouldn't have such an awesome story to share. He's letting me share since he doesn't have Reddit. Here's the cast, names changed for privacy: Shane, my significant other; Fred, the boss; Richard, the leader of the team; Honey, well, it's me. Shane works in a heavy machinery company. He really loves his job, and Shane doesn't look like he can lift that much. You'd be surprised. He's got a great gig working 12-hour shifts with the weekly days off, which he usually spends time with me. On the day this happens, Shane's waiting for one of the machines to restart. Richard starts going off on Shane as he just sees him standing there.
"Stop standing around and get back to work."
Of course, Shane defends himself with the obvious, stating the restart and whatnot. They go at this for a few minutes, then comes the glorious words. Shane says, "You know what? How about we trade places for the day? We'll see who has the tougher job." Richard, of course, agrees.
I want your whole schedule for the day.
Shane says, okay, to be clear, you want my whole schedule?
Yes, your whole schedule.
Shane says, okay. Shane proceeds to hand over 3 pages, written over front and back, his entire schedule. Richard looks it over.
There's no way this is your schedule for the day. The week, maybe.
Shane gives him a serious look. That is my entire schedule for the day. Richard walks off to start Shane's schedule. Shane stands at Richard's desk and starts on what was supposed to be 6 hours of work. Shane gets the work done in an hour. Richard comes back in 2 hours.
Shane, you need to help me with this.
I can't. You need to learn it like I did. I had to figure out how to do it myself. Richard says,
you need to help me.
Shane says, I'm the leader for the day. Stop standing around and get back to work. Richard's face has never been redder as he walked away to figure it out. Turns out Richard actually complained to Fred, the boss, and Fred comes in. Richard says you're not respecting him? Shane shrugs and explains what actually happened. Fred rubs his chin and goes silent for a few minutes. Richard looks smug as if he'd won. Then Fred responds with something that makes Shane grin ear to ear. Well, I had something I needed Shane's help with tomorrow morning, but since Shane's got plans tomorrow and he's the leader, Richard, you'll have to be his replacement. It's been a week and Richard's still mad from what I heard. You may ask me what malicious compliance was in the story. Richard learned exactly how much work my man does in the company by Shane maliciously complying with Richard's demand. Although outwardly Richard seems very upset about the situation, I hope internally that it was a very humbling experience for them to realize this guy does actually a lot of work and hopefully should be recognized for that, or at least mentally acknowledged. And our final story of the day is by Reasonable Maximum 31, exactly what I was ordered to do. I can't equal some of the truly awesome freakery I have read so far. I do have one small contribution to make. I worked for the government, and at this job there was no official dress code really, sort of just make sure your clothes are clean. I dressed in khaki pants and polo shirts that had the agency's name embroidered on it. I thought they looked kind of like a uniform and was pleased. One day I got a new supervisor who called me in after a week on the job and told me she expected me to wear a dress every day from now on. This actually wasn't something she could require officially, but I didn't want to go to my office manager and complain. If she was my supervisor, she could make me miserable with petty anti-crap for the entire duration, which for all I know could be years. So I dug into my closet for my dresses, which I didn't have a lot of anyway, and found the single most hideous dress I had ever owned in my life. It was actually a dreadful combination of harvest gold, puke green. We're talking real Campbell's pea soup green with a weird neon pink trim. And I wore it every single day. She despised that dress, which I know because she complained to a coworker who promptly and gleefully repeated the conversation verbatim to me. Apparently, she hated those colors even more than I did. She came to me after a few months and asked if I couldn't wear another dress, and I said, sorry, it's the only one I have. I haven't worn it in years actually, but since it's important to you that I wear a dress, she walked off with a line of white around her compressed lips and didn't bring it up again. I wore that dress for a year and a half until she was transferred to another office. No one in the office ever bothered me about my clothes again. I think my main question is, how did somebody get a hold of such a hideous dress to begin with? Was it like a bad impulse buy, or was it a weird gift or something that you kind of just held on to because you feel bad throwing away a dress that somebody gifted to you? From the description of it, it sounds like you're walking around looking like a knockoff pack of watermelon bubblegum. I'm just wondering who sees that dress and is like, you know what? Yeah, I'm gonna buy that. But with that being said, that's all the time we have for today. So if you have a favorite story of the day, let me know which story and why in the comments down below. But besides that, if you enjoyed the video, please consider giving it a like, and if you haven't, subscribe and turn notifications on so you'll never miss an upcoming video. No matter what you do, whether it's just viewing the video, liking, subscribing, turning notifications on, I appreciate the heck out of it. Every little thing that you do helps the channel grow that much more, and I can't thank you enough for it. So, until next time, I hope you all have a wonderful day, and I'll be right here next time on the Storytime channel.